In December, I had 10 books on my TBR and read a total of 13 books, hitting my Goodreads target of 100 books with a few hours to spare. My January TBR will be much shorter. I only have 3 books on that. Happy New Year 2024. My name is Jim. This is my channel, Books, Reading and Stuff. Last month, December, was really hectic from a reading point of view. I had set my Goodreads target for the year at 100 books, and at the beginning of December I'd read 87, which meant I had to read 13 books to hit the target, which I did. But the last 2 weeks there was a lot of stress to reach this target, which is stupid really, because it was a target I set and it doesn't really matter how many books I read, it's just a vanity metric after all. Last month I finished Martin Chuzzlewit. I read most of this in October and November. I finished it on the 1st of December. This was a mammoth. And now I only have 2 Dickens novels left to read, Barnaby, Rudge and Nicholas Nickleby. I intend to read Barnaby, Rudge starting in October this year. Next on my December TBR was Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. And I put up a 1-minute review of that. The link is here. December was about rereading. I reread Wuthering Heights, which is an excellent read. It's a 5-star read for me on the second reading as well as the first. It's my favourite of the Bronte novels I've read, although with Charlotte Bronte I've only read Jane Eyre so far. I've read both of Anne Bronte's novels and of course Emily's Wuthering Heights. There was a NetGalley arc, although it wasn't. I read it after it was published, which was Fuel to Flame by Lauren Street, which was a crime novel set in Tennessee. And I intend to put up reviews of all of the books I read in December eventually. I've got some catching up to do because I was just doing a lot of reading last month and not producing so many videos. And next on the TBR, but the last book I read in December was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, which I finished on the 31st of December to hit that 100 target. And again, I'll put up a review of this sometime in January. Then there was Actress, which I didn't get to. Actress will be on my January TBR. And there was Nightwings by Robert Silverberg. As a teenager, I read a lot of Robert Silverberg and other science fiction authors. This was an enjoyable reread, and it's connecting back to the past. I also had a hunger artist on my list. I wanted to read a hunger artist, but it wasn't in the Essential Kafka, so I don't think this is the Essential Kafka anymore. This does have the trial, it has the castle, and it did have Metamorphosis, which I reread, which was the shortest book I read in December, being the only one under 100 pages. And I really enjoyed reading Metamorphosis again, but I was disappointed that A Hunger Artist wasn't in here. I can find it on Internet Archive, so I could find it if I wanted to, but I missed out A Hunger Artist reread. And finally, on the 10 that I put down for my TBR was Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaghy, which was the best book I read in December, possibly the best book I read in the whole year. I'll be thinking about my top 3 of 2023 very shortly. I also read 6 books that were not on my TBR, and I expect this month in January also to be reading books aside from my TBR. I read The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway, again another reread. I read The Next Victim by Helen Durrant. This is a police procedural set in Manchester. Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which was a choice for the FOMO book club for January and February. I was skipping the gun here, which is a brilliant read. And again, I'll talk more about this later. Shards of Space by Robert Sheckley, which is a collection of science fiction short stories written in the 40s and 50s, which was a lot of fun. And Star Trek Wounded Sky by Diane Duane, which is my favourite Star Trek book I've read to date. I haven't read a lot of Star Trek books, but this was really good. This was a 5-star read for me, and it had a lot of humour and a lot of philosophy, as the Enterprise was fitted with a new type of drive, which was faster than warp drive, which could take them to another galaxy, but as the title suggests, Wounded Sky, it interfered with the nature of the universe and the laws of the universe, and it was a very intriguing read. So on to January, and as I said, I only have 3 books on my TBR this month, much fewer than in December. The first was from December's TBR, the one I didn't get to, Anne Enright's Actress. Anne Enright won the Booker Prize in 2007 for The Gathering. I haven't read that. I haven't read any Anne Enright. The 3 authors on my TBR, I haven't read them before. I like to read new authors, even though last month I was doing some rereading, which is unusual for me. This is about the mother-daughter relationship. The mother was a great actress. Her daughter was standing in the wings, and her mother later goes crazy. I don't know much more about it, apart from what's on the blurb. And I have another police procedural. This is Cold Case by M.A. Cumley. This is about a case that's been opened up, a police case that's opened up from 10 years before, as new evidence comes to light that one of the suspects for the original murder has been found dead himself and has been ruled out of being the murderer. So they have to find out who the murderer was and why the case was so hastily concluded 10 years previously. The victim was Aisha, who was the wife of a police officer, and she was of Pakistani origin, and they have to look into why she was killed. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know how that's going to go. Finally, I have this book, Tales from Kartli by Revaz-giorgi Avaladze. It's also in Georgian. Half is in Georgian, half is in English. I will be reading the English. My Georgian, unfortunately, is not up to reading this. It's a mixture of Georgian mythology, medieval horror, and Lovecraftian mystery. So, and it's got some illustrations as well. Yes, black and white monster. The illustrations are all in black and white. This one's a 3-headed monster here. There's some character from Georgian mythology who looks a bit like Thor with his hammer there. So this should be fun. I'm always keen to read Georgian literature in English translation. So that's my January TBR. In January I won't be having a Goodreads target of 100 books. I've put it down to 72, which is much more manageable, and I can focus more on quality than on quantity, which is always a good thing. If you've read any of the books, you can let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next video. Goodbye.